afternoon, everyone. Namaste. So, thanks for inviting me for this, and where I am able to provide some Auditee views, because we have been audited with WebTrust for almost now last 5 years, and we have been there with several browsers on SSL front as well. So, firstly, I want to thank CCA, because with this opening talk, he also mentioned of several very welcoming initiatives where streamlining of audit, streamlining of software side, streamlining infrastructure side, financial aspects, and also the streamlining all the organizations involved in this trust business. That's very important, and I think that's where we are moving, and we'll be very competitive globally. So I think very welcoming initiatives, and thank you, sir, for putting that opening note. I think that's also an inspiration for all the CS to be very globally competitive. And also I want to congratulate Digital Age for being there as the licensed practitioner in this WebTrust world, because always we have been looking at only foreign auditors doing it, but it's very welcoming that we have Indian auditor in that space. Thank you for that, and congratulations to you. Can we go to the next slide? So WebTrust, I think I have only 3 slides, so I'll not go very much detail on that. I think already Mr. Subhash, everyone has spoken much deeper on that. But WebTrust, when we started, 2016-17 when we started, because WebTrust was the only framework, or now also is the only framework which is there for globally recognized CA setup, because for eMudhra we had ambition to be global, and we have been traveling that journey. So WebTrust was the framework which has been very helpful for us to be globally competitive and globally recognized as well, because today we do CA operations in several countries from our Indian infra, and this is very, very important in getting those accreditations in different parts of the world. So as CCS sir mentioned, and also Mr. Subhash touched upon it, it's not very complicated, it's not very difficult, but it's a more disciplined process what has to be there. Being alert and attentive to the CA operations, that's very, very important. And also it has to be a professionally run organization, right? The CA is a more trust business, and it should be more professionally run organization. That's very, very important. And again, what we saw in last audit report sample, it is very important to be transparent, and mainly in disclosures what we make, incidents, etc. We should be very, very transparent operation. So this is what generally WebTrust, or even when we talk to the browsers, they expect. I mean, the Western world works like that. You have to be much transparent, disclose whatever it is, right? There is a negligence, there is a mistake happening, please disclose it. So it can be discussed, we can see whatever corrective action can be there. So that's what it is. So alternate standard, when we evaluated, there was only HC standard, but primarily in Europe for getting into supervisory bodies. But generally this North American standard of CPA Canada WebTrust is there. Let's go to the next slide, please. I'll not again get into details of this, but broadly as an auditee, when we looked at, it is more the CPS, the service integrity, and CA environmental controls, what has to be more disciplined. So which I think we had to redo a lot with CPS, the disclosures what we made, the practice disclosures what we make in CPS, etc. Let's go to the next slide, please. These are again from documentation side also, because all the policy and practicing that particular policy is very important. I have put some of the sample documents here what are very important, because in Indian CA operations, sometimes because auditors never ask, we may not be very attentive to everything. But in WebTrust, it's like, for us, it's like 3-4 weeks of field activity where they kind of, rather than questioning, they interrogate us to ensure that every samples are available for every particular part of these documents, right? So we have to say whatever is not applicable, we mention it as not applicable. So like say key escrow, probably we may not be doing, or key management services, or this integrated circuit card, that's the smart card controls, we may not be doing. But most of them we should have proper samples, evidences that we have done that properly in the audit duration. Let's go to the last slide. Yeah, next slide. Sorry, before. Yeah, next one. Yeah. Next one. Yeah. So this is the last slide I will be taking. I mean, before this. Go back. Yeah. This is very, very important slide, and I will stay on this for like next couple of minutes because what happened, what are the very important aspects, what was the change shift happened when we were doing like only Indian CA, and when we had to get into global WebTrust audit, right? So what we saw, this functioning of policy authority, right? Because any CA, there is a system of policy authority, like it's the management who decides on the CA operation. This is very, very critical that any change management, anything happening in the CA, whether it has really undergone that policy authority, first of all, whether policy authority is properly designated by the board or the management of the company, because if it's a larger company, whether it's properly done, whether it is authorized to do that, and the policy authority members, whether they have discussed, decided on any change management, whether policy authority is also supervising the audit reports, the security reports, what are coming, because there are, like say what we saw, VA has to be done every 3 months, PD has to be every 1 year, and there are quarterly audit required as per CAP forum guidelines. So policy authority is responsible that they are in place. Any findings in that has to be discussed, minuted properly in policy authority minutes, the meeting minutes, and should be evidenced by auditor. Second thing, service isolation, because many times what happens, we try to run very small, but running very small is not really fault tolerant. So many things has to be undergoing service isolation, like say certificate management, time stamping, OCSP, and there are several services what are running in the system. So those should be isolated properly, and also application layer, database layer, the HSM network. So these should be having proper isolations. Third is redundancy architecture or fault tolerant architecture. Mr. Subhash already touched upon this, but it's very, very important we have local fault tolerance, right? So mainly for critical services, I cannot claim that my hard disk went down, so what to do kind of situation, right? You should have proper local fault tolerance. So local fault tolerance at multiple level, right? So in a server there can be RAID controlled hard disk, then there may be multi CPUs. Then again, I can have a HA setup there, I can have a DB replication locally. Then, so those are like fault tolerance locally. And also important thing is we should also have a proper BCP, that there is a DR, there is synchronization, what is your RTO, what is your recovery point, right? So these should be very much proper and properly tested as well. Time synchronization already spoke about. The time should be a reliable time source. In India we use NPL synchronization, but any CA they should, because time is very critical, right? You are certify something on time, right? So my certificate validity starts from today. Whether your time is synchronized for a variation of plus or minus 1 second is very, very important here. All your systems should be time synchronized and having proper audit evidence, auditable evidence that you have been synchronizing, like say at least 24 hours once or 12 hours once. It cannot be like some servers have a difference and your certificates are wrongly timed, or even audit logs, right? Every event log should be properly time stamped. The other important thing is performance and availability for critical services, like say OCSP. So in India, generally we get several complaints that when they open the PDF documents of several CAs, it says OCSP checking for a long time, right? So this is not at all acceptable in a browser world or a global world. So you should give like kind of 1 second guarantee, or already we covered that 3 seconds is the max response time what we have to ensure, right? So we cannot claim that no, my server was having huge load, it cannot respond. So these roads, so browsers will start questioning publicly. You have to disclose everything online and you have to answer why it happened. So negligence is not generally accepted. So what we have to do is we should have proper capacity planning, proper sizing of the resources. We have to properly load test it, whether it can take sporadic loads coming in. So these are very important, and you should be able to present such reports that you have done something, you have done the proper sizing, taken some numbers, and ensure that you are giving a quality service. Then CA facility, administrative and access ownership. So these are another areas what we were questioned by auditors several times. We run our own facility, but we may get into third-party DCs. In third-party DCs, the general question will be that who is having the access, right? Whether CA is the owner or the DC provider is the owner. So this is always a question. That's why if you see global certifying authorities are very, very cautious. Many of them operate their own facilities, but when they do third-party DCs, they should get into proper agreements that there is no unauthorized access, whatever the case may be, by the data center provider. So the co-location area belongs to CA, right? Whatever emergency, the CA is responsible to put 24/7 people over there and give the authorization to data center people to access the co-location area. This was several times questioned in these kind of situations. So you should have proper planning, and there is no like DR exemption kind of scenario. You should have proper BCP, so DR should be there, and you should be doing. One small correction about Mr. Subhash's presentation. He mentioned about tier 4. It is not tier 4, it is 4 layers to act. 4 layers. There is no tier specification in any of the CA operation for a DC facility. You should have 4 physical security layers where the critical activity happens. Right? So you can take everything, whatever is physically secure. I cannot say my gate there is a security. The gate security can be there if the compound wall is that all that there is a tier requirement, right? So that kind of physical security which has to be surpassed to get into a critical activity area. Yes, yes, they. Layer 4. Yes.
Actually, if you see original 2002 guidelines, CCA guidelines, it talks of 7 layers.
Layers, yeah.
Layers is okay. Tier 4 means again go to the uptime institute and then designing accordingly, TIA 942, all those compliances.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you go to such kind of data center, there is a cost.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes those are non-affordable as well. Yeah. Initially there were 7 layers, but now CCA guidelines is again I think 3 layers. This says 4 layers, not much of difference as such. Primary and DR we spoke about. Certificate linting is very much required. Linting is that technically whether you are right. Say in India, CCA has specified interoperability guidelines, IOG there. So it says what has to exactly go in the certificate, what should be the nomenclature, what all the values that should be present in the certificate. So every certificate issued, you have to give a guarantee that you are link testing that. You are testing that it conforms to the technical. Yeah. Yeah. Better to invest on that, better to invest on that, because we have seen variations in some of the CA certificates. It is better to invest something if like CDAC can come up with a proper linting to confirm that the certificates are complying to technical requirements of CCA. Incident management mechanism I am reporting as per WebTrust is very, very important. There should be transparency in any kind of incident. When I say incident, it's where the incident which is critical in nature, right? So many times people don't disclose, saying that "Arey abhi solve ho gaya, chalne do." Kind of. It is very important. You should have an incident register. You have to log it. You should have proper evidence, closure, and disclosure. Then internal audits and results, again internal audits has to be properly followed. In CCA there is a requirement of every 6 months there should be internal audit, so those should be properly followed, and again it should be like policy authority should go through any findings, put a closure mechanism. The closure mechanism cannot exceed like 90 days, that's a thumb rule I guess, but auditors always say that it should be within 90 days, so those should be followed. Risk detection mechanism is again important, because we are giving trust, so any kind of risk. So in WebTrust world, auditors always check on this risk, like say prominent companies, if any certificate is issued, whether you are attentive, you are doing double check that, like say if there is a request from say Prime Minister office or say Infosys, I am just taking random names, but whether those are prominent companies and whether you are double attentive, you should put like double check that requester is a genuine requester representing that organization. Similarly, there is countries of suspicion. We in eMudhra we put several countries under suspicion list, but we know generally which are to be suspicious of. Blacklists of United Nations, the terror organizations, we know any syntax, so we have developed our own risk detection mechanism around this. And also weak key detection, compromised keys, weak keys, also the presentation covered of revoked keys. So any revoked keys, we should be very attentive if there is a fresh request coming. I mean, these are some in nature. I am not covering the SSL. If you go deeper in SSL, there are several domain validation requirements, etc. But these were the things where our small cultural change had to be done when we were adopting WebTrust. So I thought I will bring that to the forum today, and that may be of some help. Thank you. That's all from my side. If any questions, please let me know.
Very useful and very informative. It was a practical exposure.